You know what the four basic operations are, but it doesn't hurt to review them. It doesn't hurt to kind of internalize it. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So let's talk about the four basic operations. All right, so here we go. So they are the following. We got the positive, the addition in the top left corner. We'll go ahead and make that nice and bold and green. In the top right corner, we got subtraction, minus. In the bottom left corner, we got multiply or times. And in the bottom right corner, we have division or divide. So here we go. So a couple of things to take note of. So the first thing that I want you to take note of are there are different ways to talk about these things. It's basically like vocabulary words. So whenever we're talking about adding, or putting two things together and kind of seeing the total, they might not use the word add. They might use the word sum, like what is the sum of two numbers, or what is 2 plus 2. More than also indicates some addition. Total, like I said previously, putting two numbers together, that can also mean addition. Combining two numbers, that can also mean addition. And the same is true of subtraction. There's a lot of different vocabulary words that, again, we just have to kind of memorize because they're not always going to use the word subtract. Some of those are minus, what is left, less than is another one, fewer than, the difference between two numbers, or we could say what remains. And keep in mind, these are not comprehensive lists. There might be other ways to talk about adding and subtracting, but these are probably the most common ones that we would come across on the GMAT. So the second thing we want to take note number 2, is the same is true of multiplying and dividing. There's more than one way to say we're multiplying two numbers together. So we might say 2 times 2. We might say the product of two numbers. We might say what is twice, if something is twice something else, what is it? Again, that's 2 times, right? Double, triple, quadruple. I didn't want to write quadruple here, but you get the idea. Even of, like for example, what is half of 4? That actually means multiplication, where we do 1/2 times 4. Increase by a factor of. So if we say we want to increase 10 by a factor of 4, it's 10 times 4, which is 40. Same thing with division. There are some other vocabulary words that we have to take note of. We have ratio, the ratio between two numbers. So if you say, for example, apples and oranges exist in a ratio of 2 to 3, that's really saying 2/3. Like you can actually write it as a fraction, 2 with the line and a 3 on the bottom. You can say the quotient. So for example, if we say, what is the quotient of 10 divided by 5? The quotient would be 2. You can do a split, like split 12 into 3 groups. So that basically means 12 divided by 3. Over, think about fractions, right? Like if we say 5/3, what we really mean is 5/3, right? 5 divided by 3, shared equally. Let's say we have $100 and we want to share it equally among 20 people. That would be 100 divided by 20. So a lot of different ways to talk about these things. Okay, take note number 3. There's several ways to show multiplication. Again, this is not about the vocabulary word. It's actually the way the equation looks, the way the math looks. All right, so take, for example, we could have this x. See this x here? That, of course, means 2 times 3. But again, that's not the only way. We could also use parentheses like this. This also means 2 times 3. In fact, the number 2 doesn't even need to be in parentheses. Only one of them has to be in parentheses, right? Or it could be like the 2 is in parentheses and the 3 isn't. But again, by convention, we typically put the non-parentheses thing to the left. We could have this dot, in the middle. That's also another way to show multiplication. And if we're using a variable, we're going to talk about that later, but let's just introduce it briefly. A variable is a letter. So in this case, A, for example. If we put the number 3 right next to the number A, that means 3 times A. But we don't always have to put the time sign or the dot. We can just put them right next to each other. And that's true even if we have 2 variables. So again, in this case, we have 2 variables, x and y. If we put them right next to each other like that, that's going to mean x times y. Subtraction and addition don't really do this. So for example, if we want to add two numbers together, or two variables, we can really only use the cross sign. That's really the only sign that indicates addition. Same thing with subtraction. We use the minus sign. That's really the only thing that indicates subtraction. But multiplication can be shown in a variety of different ways. The same is true of division. There's several different ways to show division. I know it gets kind of confusing. That's why I say a lot of this has to be memorized. So of course we can use the division sign. That's when we have the circle on top, the circle on bottom, and the line in the middle. Or we could write it as a fraction. So 4/2. You'll even see like in whenever you're typing on Reddit or on the computer, a lot of times we show division like this with the forward slash. And we also talked about the ratio. The ratio is when you put a colon or the two dots between the two numbers. All four of these equal division. So many different ways to show division and multiplication. Again, things that just have to be memorized. Take note number 5. What is multiplication? Is multiplication somehow distinct from addition? And the answer is no. Multiplication is just repeated addition. It's essentially a shorthand or a shortcut. Let's say, for example, we want to add 5 to itself 7 times. So of course we could do 5 plus 5 plus 5, blah, 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 blah. But that's tedious, especially what if you want to add 5 to itself 100 times or 1,000 times, right? So that's what multiplication is. It's just a shortcut. So if you look at the left here, what it means is we're either going to be adding 5 to itself 7 times, or we're going to be adding 7 to itself 5 times. It's really the same thing. In fact, I should probably write that down. So there's actually two ways to show the multiplication here in the form of addition. We could do 5 added to itself 7 times, or we could do 7 added to itself 5 times. And you'll notice in both cases, it's going to equal 35. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. They're both essentially equal to each other. So if multiplication is just repeated addition, does that mean that division can be thought of as repeated subtraction? Kind of. It doesn't always work. And we'll dive into that later when we get into remainders and things like that. But let's look at a very easy case. So 12 divided by 4. Of course, we know 12 divided by 4 is 3. 4 goes into 12 3 times. Hey, that's another way to talk about division. Go into, right? Or that, I guess it's times or division, however you want to look at it, right? But anyway, how can we do this via subtraction? Well, check this out. We could do 12 minus 4, and that equals 8. And then we take that 8, and then we subtract 4 again, and we get 8 minus 4 equals 4. And then we take that 4, and we subtract 4 again, and we get 0. Notice how we hit 0 in 3 steps. So step 1, step 2, step 3. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now again, this only works in clean cases when the number evenly goes in, when the smaller number evenly goes into the bigger number. So that's why on the bottom there it says in some cases.